Hey there everybody. So I wanted to make this video on this particular CRT. This is the Panasonic CT-32E13G. So this is a particularly interesting tube that I've seen, and I've talked to a couple of other people who have wanted to know a little bit more about this tube. They've seen them online. They also compare them to the Panasonic TAOs, which are the flat screen variants of these. So if you might take a look here, you might notice there is a little bit of a curve. So these tubes are actually curved tubes. This particular Panasonic is one that I got from my mom's friend who was getting rid of it. This tube is also in particularly pretty old and worn out. It was made in 2003, and as you can see back here, I have the entirety of the back plate taken off of it. This is the little sticker on there saying it's from October of 2003. This one in particular needed a bit of adjustments, not just in the geometry department, but in the convergence department as well. So, for example, the corner convergences all around here were pretty bad. It also needed a voltage adjustment in the back and a focus adjustment too. So, I did all that already. I also did a little bit of a purity adjustment too. Just because up at the top here, you might not be able to see it in the video, but there was a big purple spot here, and then there was a little bit of a spot down here on the bottom corners by the NTSC logo. The reason why they get that is primarily just due to the Earth's magnetic field, but I tried adjusting it a little bit more just to try and get rid of that. A little bit, didn't work too well, but it worked just enough. But I got everything back together. But one thing I did want to show, especially back here, so as I said, I have the whole back plate of the tube off. So what I had to do was basically just adjust all these rings on here, as well as adjust this yoke. And I also glued the yoke down too, because this yoke was pretty loose. I screwed it in the best that I could, but this thing you could still shift a little bit. And I gave it a little bit of a yoke adjustment because it was tilted a little bit to the right. And then down here is where you adjust the voltage and the focus. So the top one's focus, the bottom one's voltage. Pretty simple. In particular, the focus on this tube is pretty okay. It's not amazing. Here, let me go ahead and pull up a convergence pattern just to show. So what I mean by that is if we get close to the phosphors here, you know, the focus is alright. It's kind of whatever. I tried getting it as sharp as I possibly could, but up towards the corners here, they start to get a lot of focus loss, and that's pretty common in CRTs in general, especially consumer grade ones. They really don't care too much about this, and I don't really care too much about the defocus part either, as long as it's not terrible. What I'm more concerned about usually is misconvergence, so like if you see here, there's misconvergence in the corners a little bit, but it's not that bad, so it's something I never really worry about too much. But overall, the tube now looks pretty nice. It's been pretty well adjusted, both in the geometry, convergence, and focus-wise. And, yeah. I mean, there's some issues, obviously, like up here and whatnot, but you're really not going to notice that. So, tube all in all is pretty good. I guess one other thing to note about this tube, so there is something that happens in the, I think the jungle chip, where it has this thing where it sharpens up a lot of the edges. So you might be able to tell just a tiny bit around the edges here. Not sure how well it's going to get in the camera, but it's just a little bit sharpened, and that's kind of a thing that happens with these tubes. They do it automatically, and there's no real way to turn it off. I don't know if it has any velocity modulation or anything like that, but I know it does have that. However, it's not necessarily a huge deal as people say it is. So, yeah. All in all, it's a pretty decent tube. This one, like I said, this one in particular is pretty tired. I've had to adjust it twice on the back to get the GT voltage to go up a little bit, just because in the settings here, the brightness was pretty low. Give me one sec. So if we look here, the brightness used to be set much higher, but now it's set pretty low. The picture contrast is still set a little bit higher. And also the other thing too is this TV doesn't work very well with light guns right now, just because you have to crank the contrast up to really get it to work. and it just doesn't really like it that much. It doesn't really play well with House of the Dead 2, but it does play pretty well with Confidential Mission just because it was easier to calibrate the guns on that. But yeah, so I just wanted to show you a little bit of an overview, I guess, of this TV. It was pretty easy to adjust, especially getting into the service menu for this thing. So, bring up a monoscope pattern here just to kind of show what I mean. You can adjust the corners pretty easily. There's like 3 different adjustments for the corners, and that's mainly to do with bowing. If you want it to bow out, bow in, if you want the whole side, or if you want just the edges. And then, of course, you can also shift the TV horizontally or vertically. You can also adjust the linearity, the trapezium of it as well. It's all pretty easy. And to even get to that, you actually need a remote to do so, but you basically just go to timer here, change it to 30 minutes. Then afterwards, you got to go to channel 124 on the cable side. And then after you do that, you turn the volume all the way down, but you got to hit it on the TV. So once you hit it on the TV, it'll bring that up. Then you just press power on the remote, and there you go. You got into your service menu. This is what I mean by a lot of the service adjustments on it. So on here, you have your H position, H width, which is just how wide it is. PCC, that's your edges on both the top and the bottom, how bowed out or bowed in they'll get. Top gap and bottom gap's kind of the same thing, but just for individual. Trapezium, or no, I don't think actually. If I remember correctly, let's see. Oh yeah, it is, okay. So yeah, also, funny story, these readings here are actually in hexadecimal, so that's why they look like that. But you get top, bottom gap, trapezium, PCC, HG, LG, that's, I don't know exactly what that stands for, but that's the same thing as PCC, but just individually on the top and bottom. These ones are very, like, fine adjustments, and same with these here. And then, of course, this is your vertical controls. And then I don't know what the heck this is. But afterwards, once you get everything set up, you can also set stuff like your brightness. I think this might be sub-bright, I'm not 100% sure, but there's that. With contrast. Your cutoffs, your BYGs, just like a kind of a range thing. You don't really mess with that. Red and blue drive, you don't have any green drive set up, but that's okay. So you change all that, and then you're pretty much good to go. I mean, you just press power again, then you just have to turn off the TV and turn it back on. And you're set. So yeah, just a quick overview of this TV. I'll go ahead and put some Super Mario World, I guess, on it, and show you how it looks. Oh yeah, I forgot. I also don't have the audio plugged in on this TV in particular, but see if I can get a good shot of that. But yeah, all in all, not too bad. Up close, the scan lines are pretty small, you could say. They're not super big or anything, or super well defined like you would find in some of the other, I guess, higher quality TVs, maybe some Sonys, JVC, iArt, stuff like that. But overall, it does a really good job, and I really like it. And also, the auto sharpening really isn't a huge issue, especially in 480i, whenever you're playing like a GameCube game or something like that. It makes no difference whatsoever. It looks really good. But yeah, so that's just this overview of the CT-32E13G. I just want to kind of to make a quick video just because I like this TV a lot, and I've done a bit of due diligence on it. And I guess if you want to see me make any more videos of CRTs, I have a few other ones. I think this one here on my bed, I can't really show it right now, but I have a Sony GVM that I'll probably make a video of soon. But yeah, that's about it. Oh yeah, also, I did forget to mention, too, about the video inputs for this thing. So, this does actually come with composite S-video and component inputs. That's also another reason why I really like this TV, just because it does come with these, or those 3 options. It also comes with RF, too, I guess, if you really have an old system that'll use it, like an Atari or something like that. But yeah, overall, it's got all the inputs. It's also got one front composite input up here, too, if you ever need it. I use it for testing purposes, really. I don't really care about that. Composite looks pretty great on this thing, honestly. I believe it also has a comb filter. So, any sort of, like, I guess, noise or whatnot does get filtered out a little bit, and the rainbowing is to a minimum, you could say, especially on the Super Nintendo. But yeah, I also wanted to add that in just because I forgot. Also, surround sound. Honestly, this is a really good system. It sounds a lot better than most CRTs. So yeah,